Our colleague Vuyo Mvoko is in Cape Town, tracking that story for us. He was live in that room as the SG of the African National Congress was giving that update on the developments as far as the talks are concerned. Vuyo, the meeting is done and the president has left, but it does seem over and above the task team that has been set to hold these negotiations. There has also been the president himself, for example, sitting down with the likes of the EFF leadership and many others. What are we learning is coming out from those talks tonight by the NEC?
Not much, I'm afraid, Tabo. The meeting was indeed short by ANC standards. I mean, it was probably the shortest, one of the shortest NEC meetings they have ever held. But then, the briefing following that meeting could have even been shorter, given that the ANC Secretary General was not prepared to give away anything. Essentially, they called a meeting to say, we have nothing to say at this stage. However, they are, of course, going to a caucus meeting, and we are not clear at this stage as to what it is exactly that they'll be discussing at that caucus meeting. But someone who's been with me throughout the evening, of course, is Asanda Ngoasheng. Asanda, I mean, one of the shortest meetings the ANC has NEC meetings the ANC has ever held, and Mbalula coming out and really not saying much, if anything at all.
Well, I'm not surprised that he didn't say much, because if you think about it, when you're in negotiations, you don't really want to give away much, and you'd have seen from, for instance, Julius Malema's press release press briefing, that he had quite a lot to say, including giving us details of what agreements had been put on the table. But that to me suggests that he didn't get what he wanted, and it doesn't seem likely to get it, which is something that, if you listen to Fikile Mbalula, he did in some level confirm. And I think, you know, what was interesting that came out is that they confirmed that they've met with everybody who was willing to meet.
But that's what they said. That's what they said from the very beginning. That
yes,
they have a mandate to go and speak to everybody. So we knew that they were going to speak to everybody.
We knew that, but I think it is important for South Africans to constantly have that affirmation and debate, because there keep being these reports of MK not speaking, Action SA not speaking, this person not speaking, that person not speaking. So I think these updates are very important.
You had the IFP yesterday holding a briefing. You had Julius Malema and the EFF holding having a briefing today. You've had Action SA. In other words, other people have been talking, except for the ANC.
Well, I think that, you know, the reason why the ANC went into this government of national unity in the first place is because it wanted to force all the other political parties to come to some agreement, to at the very least come to the negotiating table, because by making it a government of national unity instead of a coalition government, it forces everyone to engage.
To now take decisions.
And I think
they did say right from the beginning they're going to speak to everybody. They did say they want the preference for a government of national unity. Obviously, I mean, parties that then came on board had their own ideas of how they would want to participate. So it's for the ANC to now take decisions.
Like I said, I'm not surprised that, you know, they haven't come out with the decisions, because we must remember that after this meeting, I wouldn't be surprised if the caucus that they're talking about is them then tabling the various possibilities even further, because I won't be surprised if you'll find that some elements of the ANC itself are not 100% assured or agreed. And I think until that 10 o'clock tomorrow, or that whatever time it is that the president is elected, we're going to see a lot of negotiations and a lot of background engagements, even including the MK and the EFF itself, who seem to be suggesting that there's finality in the negotiations.
No transactional decisions.
Well,
Discussions, rather. That was the line. What did you read into that?
I think that's a lie. I think they have to say that, but I think it's a lie. These things are transactional by their very nature, because it is about what can you give me in return for what. If you think about, for instance, the rumors have been that the conversations are with the DA, the IFP, and the NFP. It makes sense because if they want KZN, they will be in discussion with those, because those are political parties that have the ability to give them the majority, which they didn't get, and which the MK came pretty close to. And so it is going to be about exchange of things. But the difficulty in it is that you have to balance the interest of the voters and the manifesto that you said you're going to execute, unless you're the MK, of course, because we don't know what they promised. And then you have to balance, the so-called markets and what agreements they're likely to take. We've already seen Fitch putting out a press statement saying that they are in preference of a DA coalition rather than any other, which tells you where the so-called markets are, and it tells you where the interests of the so-called markets are. And for me, what's going to be interesting to see that comes out of tomorrow is how these balance of forces have been managed, and will it be a deal that can deliver the South Africa that everybody wants, but also the South Africa that is going to deal with unemployment, with crime, with all of the issues that we have. Because at the end of the day, it actually on some level doesn't matter who ends up in government, as long as they're going to deliver and give South Africa their best possible South Africa for the next 30 years. Because it's been 30 years after apartheid, the legacy of apartheid continues, and until we actually do some radical things, essentially, we are going to find ourselves here even 30 years later. And I think that's what they have to avoid in whatever agreements they come to.
Thanks, Asanda Ngoasheng. And of course, hours later, we're none the wiser about what the ANC thinks and what it is that it is happy or keen to offer those who will form a government of national unity with them. But it's the nature of things, and I'm afraid, Thabo, not a lot of good news or interesting or new things or decisions even that we can report on, certainly not this evening. Hopefully tomorrow we will see, of course, what the ANC caucus will have discussed and finalized, and we'll see that through what will be happening tomorrow after the swearing in, when, of course, the National Assembly gets to vote for the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, as well as elect a president.